Hey beautiful people, my name's Kristen. Thank you for stopping by my channel for some recent August reading. I did get my 3 books that you, my lovely subscribers and audience, picked for me, so I wanted to share those with you, as well as about 3 or 4 other books that I have managed to read so far. So starting off, Turn Right at Machu Picchu by Mark Adams. This is a nonfiction. It is listed as a travel memoir, I think. A travel narrative history / travel memoir. So that's a really actually great description. It goes into a lot of history of Peru and specifically the discovering of the different lands and monuments. And it was really fascinating how the jungle would reclaim them, like they would clear off vines and clear off trails, and then if they didn't use them or they didn't upkeep them, it would kind of be lost again. And it was a really great back and forth between that kind of history telling and his adventures to actually walk the same paths that a lot of the explorers had walked and try to see the things as if they had seen them, and then end up at Machu Picchu, which is like the big ancient city that has so much history, and we don't know definitively exactly how it was built or exactly the people who lived there, but we learn a lot, and it is definitely one of those awesome wonders of the world that is worth traveling to and learning about. And it's not a hugely long book, but it was very entertaining if you have any interest in Peru or travel or even hiking. Some of you out there that love hiking adventures, this one actually would be really great for that. So I really recommend it. The other nonfiction that I picked up this month was Carry On, and this was a collective reflections of John Lewis, several different narrators talking about it, and then the actual words and quotes of Senator John Lewis, who as a young man got involved with Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights movement. He was one of the big 6 of the I Have a Dream speech in Washington and served 33 years in the United States Senate. So you never fully 100% agree with anybody, but you cannot argue that this was a beautiful, beautiful man with beautiful thoughts and heart, and just very interesting to listen to his reflections on the different major events of his life and how he had dealt with them. So it was really good. It's only 117 pages. So if you have interest in that, that's a great one. Nonfiction November is coming up, y'all. Then for my classic that my viewers picked for me, we were picking up As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, and I picked this for August, moved it to August because August supposedly is reading Faulkner. I have never read him before, so I have some observations and then questions. So I was anticipating, true confession, that this book was going to be somewhat similar to C.S. Lewis's Grief Observed. I just had in my mind that this was going to be a writing telling about wrestling about the concepts of death and kind of what is the meaning or making peace with it, or I thought it was going to be some kind of great, new classical writing about that. It is not that at all by any stretch of the imagination. It is a story of a low-income rural family who, as far as I can tell, they are all self-absorbed in their own little realms of worlds, not really, educated beyond what's in front of them. And even their relationship with the mother, who is the one who passes, you get the feeling that there is not grief going along. There is obligations, and she has requested that her family bury her kind of the neighboring state, so to speak. And this is, again, back in later times where that was very difficult, and they're kind of like on a horse buggy wagon through rural roadsides and countrysides and having all kinds of mishaps and adventures that are just kind of cringeworthy, to be honest. And, you know, it's very dark in its feeling and its manner. So my question is Faulkner one of these dark authors? And by dark, I mean, you know, not morbid dark, but, you know, realism leaning towards things not working out in the world. That's what I want to know. And furthermore, if you've read anything besides As I Lay Dying by Faulkner, what do you recommend that I read next? Because here's the thing, I did appreciate the writing. I did really enjoy the adjectives and descriptions and his writing flow. And I would love to read something else by him, particularly if it had a character that was likable or that we could sink our teeth into and root for. That would probably be fun, but maybe he doesn't write like that. So these are now the questions I have. And I do want to read another Faulkner because I really did enjoy kind of learning about him. And to be fair, I love Thomas Hardy, have a love-hate relationship with him, but I will read anything by him as well. So that was my experience with this. It's a pretty short book, don't want to give away kind of the ending of the story, but I think I've described it enough that if that sounds interesting, maybe that's the one you should pick up. For fiction, my viewers had picked out for me to read in 2023 What the Wind Knows by Amy Harmon, and I love a good time travel or kind of mystic historical readings. And so several people had said, Kristen, you need to read this book. And I'm so sorry I put it off. This was amazing, absolute 5-star read, definitely great. It is a kind of dual timeline where the main woman loses her grandfather. And so she is making a pledge to take his ashes back to Ireland, back to their native roots. They're in New York. And so she goes back to honor her grandfather and basically gets sucked back into time. And so it's one of those, you know, narrator told sagas where you're trying to figure out if people are going to figure that out and how she's going to figure that out and all those kind of things. And it ties back into, you know, the roots of her family, right? The roots of belonging and heritage and where you come from and what does that mean? And it's just so gripping. You don't kind of want to put it down. You're always like, are they going to figure this out? Are they going to figure that out? You know, that kind of funsy thing. And I love Ireland books set in Ireland. It was just a really beautiful, beautiful book. So totally going to read more Amy Harmon. Really appreciated her writing style. I may have read her best one first. You can let me know though, again, if you've read other ones, what one should I read next? Because this was my first Amy Harmon. Then I also, under fiction, listened to Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark. And I did not realize when I downloaded it at a great price of, you know, whatever the sale price was, that it was a 30-hour audiobook. So needless to say, this is a huge investment of time and listening to, but overall, really liked it. This is so unique. It is basically the story of two magicians who are called to bring magic back into England. So supposedly there was real magic and practical magic that was happening, and then it stopped happening, and so it became theoretical magicians, and you basically had the history of magic, and you had societies of magicians, but they weren't really actually doing magic. So these two are going to bring the magic back, and they're going to use it even to help the entire country win wars. So you actually get some historical fiction in there. It's very witty dialogue, but one of the unique things that kind of is a little excessive at first, at least getting used to, is the footnotes. So like every time a event or a specific new character or a specific slang kind of thing happens, there'll be a footnote, and there are dozens and dozens of footnotes. So sometimes when you're going along and you're trying to click and get into the story, you have to keep detouring for all these footnotes. So that was kind of funny at times, but then it was kind of annoying at times. So just wanted to mention that, as well as overall, I did not feel like this needed to be the length that it was. A lot of the rabbit trails or a lot of the side stories I felt were not really instrumental to developing the story. And there were multiple times I thought in my mind, I just want to get back to the main story. I just want to have some progress here. What the heck is going to happen, or when is something going to happen? And so loved the unique perspective, thought that it was very different in anything else that I've really read. However, I think it was a little long, a little lengthy. Having said that, if it sounds interesting, pick it up and check it out, because it was a really good book. Still giving it 4 stars. The last book, we're going back to 5 stars. It was my book of the month, June, The Wishing Game, that I didn't read until August, by Meg Shaffer. This is getting lots of accolades around BookTube, and I will just agree with it. It's not an exceedingly long book. It's charming, it's lighthearted. It basically has a story of a woman who is an educator who isn't making a lot of money, kind of struggling for her way in life, really has a heart for fostering children and the underdog, particularly one little boy in particular that she wants to foster to adopt, but her living is not stable enough to be allowed to be his foster mom and adoptee mom. And so what she gets into is, because she's an educator and loves books and reading, she has been a fan of the clock books, and the mastermind who is writing these books hasn't written books in years. And all of a sudden he writes one and says that he's going to mysteriously invite people to come try to win the rights to the book, and they can do whatever they want to with the book. In other words, sell it for other people or just keep it completely to themselves, or whatever they want. So she's thinking, aha, I can get this out to other children to read, and then I can sell those rights and I can have the money to adopt the little boy that I want to foster to adopt, right? So there's an actual clock island that this author has created with his money and finances. And so she is one of 4 that are going to go get to play the game. And you learn why she's one of the 4 that gets to go and do that. You learn the different games that are on it. You get to learn a lot about the literature and about the kind of hidden agendas behind the author and the people that are on his island. And it's a lot of fun. It is like a found family kind of adventure that is very similar to the Westing game meets the Willy Wonka, because of the game aspect of it. So that's what it's about. Most of the games that are played are pretty simple. You yourself, as you're reading them, you figure them out before the people on the island even figure them out. But there's a couple of them you're like, and so it's fun to also kind of play along. So it was just glorious. Just loved it. Really quick read. Didn't really want to put this one down either. So another 5 star. So there's some recommendations, because honestly, there wasn't really anything that I super wasn't glad that I read. Some things I didn't like as much. As I Lay Dying turned out to be pretty dark, but I'm still happy I read it, right? So hope that whatever you're reading just is one that at the end of it, you are glad that you spent the time in that world, that you learned something or were challenged by something, or just made you laugh and was some stress relief to life and the craziness that is life. Hope that you are doing well. Leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've read any of these. What do you think of them? How is it going? What are you reading in August? Happy reading, y'all. Take care.